Okay, so let's go over this real quickly. Okay, so you said that people, they sound unnatural when they're being recorded. But remember, you sounded the same way. So describe how were you feeling when I was interviewing you?
Nervous.
And isn't that the normal reaction? Most of these people don't know me very well. You imagine somebody because you were talking to me a couple weeks before the interview, and you were still nervous. Imagine these people knowing that the video is going to be published on YouTube, trying to sound intelligent or whatever, and being interviewed by someone they don't really know very well, and knowing it's a very serious issue that might cause them to be harassed. How do you think they felt?
Well, the thing is that I think there's a couple of things going on. Okay, obviously the element of being nervous, but also the element of fear. Um, Maybe people might identify their voice or something like that. So therefore, I think it's all got to do with confidence and safety, really, more than anything else. Because you go through it every day of your life, yeah, and then people who know you and believe you and have seen it, witnessed it, they're kind of made to feel intimidated because what's going on with you. I mean, it's frightening. It's not normal, is it?
Also, I feel nervous to a certain extent as well because I don't know them. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know how complicated the interview is going to get. If they say something I don't know if they're going to purposely sabotage it or not. So, there's an element of that. So I can kind of imagine the difference is I'm full of righteous indignation and I'm out to prove a point that I know is true. So I may be less nervous than them, but I've had my time in interviews where I came off as kind of stressed out, you know. But I had to try to come off as assertive and having it together and, confident. So, but really, when you look at this thing, um, some of the people I interviewed were gay. Some of them were unattractive women. You know, some of them were unattractive women that I didn't. They wanted me to flirt with them, and I didn't, and they caught on to that. So, that's why it's so important for you to go on record and tell the truth about what the normal human reaction is. Now, remember, MKUltra on record, the Supreme Court noted that MKUltra was concerned with. Bear with me now. The research and development of chemical, biological, and radiological materials capable of employment in clandestine operations, secret operations, to control human behavior. That was the point. What they're doing with me is also to control human behavior, but we'll get to that in a second. The program consisted of some 149 subprojects, which the agency contracted out to various universities, research foundations, and similar institutions. At least 80 institutions and 185 private researchers participated. Because the agency funded MKUltra indirectly, many of the participating individuals were unaware that they were dealing with the agency. And I think the same is true about gang stalking. I think a lot of gang stalkers probably haven't even heard of MKUltra. They think they're working for a pharmaceutical company or a hospital or the police. They don't see how deep this thing goes. Now, when people, are giving me repetitive messages, and I'm aware that that's one of Cameron's experiments in Canada. Remember, I sent you that clip. That
It's
and I'm aware that that is used. He was experimenting with states of mind, and drugs to induce those states of mind, including comas and repetitive messages to see how he could make them act. And there are gays and heavy and unattractive women trying to get me to sleep with them. Okay, the application of that is extremely obvious. They are trying to control people.
I don't think it's trying to. I think they're persuading you to. I think I would use the word persuading.
Well, they're trying.
Nobody can. Nobody. I mean, no matter how trying they can do, it's a bit like the brainwashing.
Yeah,
So
they're trying to.
yeah, so persuasion, it's persuasive behaviour. So repetitive dialogue, um, deliberately causing you anxiety, confusion, and frustration. So you retaliate.
Also to try to get me to rely. Okay, remember one of the purposes of MK Ultra was um, substances that would make you dependent on another person. So they're trying to control behavior, and one of the ways they're trying to do that is use drugs to make me more suggestible, deprive me of sex with attractive women. So I'm kind of like, you know, desiring sex a lot, and then they're trying to get me dependent on gays or unattractive women, the people who are, constantly harassing me and trying to take advantage and trying to flirt with them. Some of them are harassing me because they know that I'm not going to go for it. Others are continually trying to flirt with me and injecting gays into my life. They've even had gays post pictures of their butts and stuff, trying to get me and others targets open to that. And I have many witnesses of that in the Facebook group with over 2,000 people. It's called like electronic harassment, and something like that, and technology or something. Anyway, so it says substances which alter personality structure in such a way that the tendency of the recipient to become dependent on another person is enhanced. So we're all kind of, it's kind of human nature already to, want to have security, emotional security, get married, have a stable home, have a strong network, right? That's human nature already. They're trying to enhance that. We're all kind of suggestible already. They're trying to make me more suggestible. We all fiend for sex. We all desire sex. They're trying to make me desperate and open to sex with people I wouldn't otherwise be open to. And that's why I've said the things about rape. I say, look, what they're doing is basically rape. It's kind of like taking advantage of someone who's drunk, who's more suggestible because of that intoxicant and not the drugs that they're giving me. So because of that, it is not moral, but it is fair for me to rape attractive women who are gang stalkers, for example. I'm obviously not going to do that, but I'm saying that it is fair, and if somebody was to do that, that would be fair because they put that on the table by trying to control their behavior sexually and to get them to sleep with gays and unattractive women, which is also consistent with the gay, feminist, liberal agenda of don't fat shame, accept gays, and the industrialization of homosexuality. You follow me?
Yeah.
Is there anything I said that you don't agree with?
I think you should elaborate more about the rape situation because that could be seen as
Exactly, and that's why I want you to do the interview, because I want people to see why I'm talking harshly about gays, why I'm talking harshly about big women. It's not just because of a couple trolls getting a rise out of me. It's not quote unquote cyberbullying, like you were saying before. That would be a big mistake for me to say that that's the reason why I'm doing it, because then it's a matter of, suck it up and be mature. But when you see that it's psychological warfare, that the Supreme Court came to the conclusion that this is what these people were trying to do. The same types of people who are doing this. I would go as far as to say some of these people are older people who are also involved in MKUltra, which took place in the church committee and the Gerald Ford Commission, okay, brought it to public attention in 1975. Okay, so this is something.
Do you think the gang stalkers are being given rewards?
Yes. Also some of them have gone on record and said they're given gift cards and stuff like that. And they're part of Citizen Corps, kind of these citizen groups that collaborate with law enforcement, supposedly against terrorists and criminals. They're also being used to gang stalk people and do smear campaigns and stuff against the individuals. They have all kinds of lies on me, even right now, posted on YouTube, all kinds of exaggerations, trying to say that I'm nuts. I mean, also, that's another thing I want to touch on that you should do an interview about is, you see how functional I am, how rational I am. How ridiculous is it for them to try to pretend that I'm mentally ill and that there's an urgent need to get me on psych meds. Okay, isn't that insane? It's like, how are these things going to help me? I know we've gone over this before, but we can't go over that enough. You know.
No, I just think it's just pushing you to the edge and making you feel controlled. I think the element of the constant brainwashing, and I just don't know how you do it every day. You get up, you face the same demons every single day of your life.
And
it's almost really distressing. As another person seeing it, it's disturbing.
Yeah, and they pester me every day, and it's a lot of the same groups. There's at least one Hispanic gang involved. I've identified two, actually, two prison gangs, the two major ones here. I've identified homosexual groups, especially from San Francisco. And then there's some gay groups affiliated with the San Francisco ones that live in Santa Clara County, where I live. I've identified 3 different police departments involved, actually 4. The Highway Patrol, the Morgan Hill Police Department, the San Jose Police Department, and the Santa Clara County Sheriff Department. Again, when I say that, obviously I can't prove it 100%, but I could tell by their actions, to me, I'm convinced 100%, but I couldn't present it to a court, for example. Okay, I've identified people from several of the psych wards I've been to. I've identified staff from there. I've identified people from the University of Phoenix who are involved. And, they come into my life on Facebook as well. Before this gang stalking happened, I never came across anyone who had University of Phoenix as their school on Facebook or any other site. After this happened, I've come across dozens of them. There's no way that's a coincidence. Would you agree?
Yeah, but still it doesn't explain it clearly, because people are always going to think it is a coincidence. You have to realise that, but there's too many coincidences.
Well,
so it does start making you think whether what you're saying, everything you're saying, is actually genuine. I mean, what I've seen so far, I don't know, it's downright disturbing, to be honest.
I mean, isn't it insane how these people and the psychiatrists who would side with them expect you to believe that them typing an ass is a complete coincidence, that it's, when it's textbook phone hijacking and it's textbook harassment using phone hijacking, and it's consistent with everything else I've said. I mean, even if that was the only proof I had, just that hijacking video you saw, it would bring a lot of credibility to everything else I've said. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
So when you look at the abundance of evidence, you would have to be fucking insane. And then when you look at the timeline, I mean, insane not to see that I'm right. When you look at the timeline, okay, and how it is consistent with my martial arts training, this thing didn't start until after 2010. At University of Phoenix, where some of the gang stalkers are, I did a report in early 2010 on Qigong exercises, okay? I was doing martial arts, in full view of my neighbors and parents. Okay, my dad was angry that I put the punching bag near the basketball court because I removed some wooden plank, for the wall, from the wall to do it. And he was upset because he thought it was an eyesore. He made me move it back behind the house in the yard. Okay, so they knew very well I was working out. And, on my ancestors, on my dead uncle, okay, one of the times, shortly after that, a year or two after that or something, when the police came, the Santa Clara County Sheriff Department came for the second time, the guy was in the backyard where I had moved the punching bag, and he gestured toward the punching bag while he was arguing with the other white cop. It must have been about whether or not I should go to the psych ward and how much of a threat I am. So, and then, they must have used martial artists to do a threat assessment. And when I started making my challenge in 2012, May, that's when the drugging intensified. And after my recent challenge, or my latest challenge, December 20th, 2013, 2013, that's when the fuming intensified and the drugging also continued to intensify. So when you look at how it intensified in a kind of linear pattern. It's kind of like a graph, right? The drugging and the fuming intensifies, okay? And you look at the consistent.
Yeah, there starts becoming a pattern.
Yeah, it's.
Follow, yeah, it just seems that there is a pattern.
But it's, you see, when you look at this thing, it's not simply because they can't beat me in martial arts. It's because I was speaking out against the status quo and the system and all the different groups in the system, including psychiatry. So that made psychiatrists and pharmaceutical companies hell bent to try to stop me. And some of these people have said that I can say whatever I want as long as I don't talk about psychiatry, because some of these criminal groups have told me that straight up. And they said that because they're heavily invested in the pharmaceutical industry. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And then, but at the same time, I think, when you look at this thing, it really began because of me talking about psychiatry with my cousins. Remember how I told you before I went to the psych ward in 2011 on the anniversary of my uncle's death? I was talking about how I was printing things out and making a big fuss, saying that my cousins don't have temporal lobe seizures. That is a stretch. And I started proving it, every day. There was piles of stuff on the counter, and my parents were very upset at me. They did not want me to put it in my cousins' heads that they were wrong about that, which would make them resist taking the psychiatric meds. You follow me? So they chose.
No, I was just going to say that it just does seem really strange that anybody. I mean, you're not the only person who's been talking about psychiatry and then suspicious things are happening, in their lives. There's been people that I've read about that have actually been killed over this. So,
Oh yeah.
I think you're just bringing it to people's attention that there is a concern here. But I guess people just not bothered. I don't know. I don't know how people could just ignore such a.
Well, people, it goes back to social norms. That's another thing. Psychiatry drugs people based on what is socially normative. When homosexuality became accepted in mainstream society, for the most part, especially in liberal states, blue states, then they were declassified it as a mental illness in 73 or 74. Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the right terminology to use because it's not socially acceptable to actually sort of demonise psychiatry because it's seen as this field that supports people with mental health and there to cure people. And in actual fact, it isn't. There is no proof that it does that.
Yes.
I mean, it could evidently cause people more harm.
And
I mean, there's debates going on. I mean, there's a debate going on tomorrow about the pros and cons of psychiatry, and there's debates going on all the time about this, and there must be some reasons behind that.
Oh yes, in court, I've in some of my past videos, I've printed out court things about guys who are trying to, repeal their court order to be medicated, to be drugged, and they bring up that there's a viable debate, a viable argument as to whether or not psychiatry is a viable treatment for, these behaviors society doesn't approve of.
I mean, another one is like, let's say, for example, like in autism, the prescribed autistic people, which were for schizophrenics, they some of the kids developed breasts and things like that.
Yes,
and
yes.
The side effects were so drastic that they had to actually. I think there was I mean, there's so many psychiatrists have been sort of associated to negative media attention and suicides as well. So it is alarming that why is that? There seems to be this kind of link, and a taboo subject that nobody wants to address. I don't know. It just seems too mysterious.
There's two reasons for it. One, it's the most profitable industry. Therefore, not only is it paying a lot of taxes, but very powerful people have invested in it. When you're an investor and you're looking to make a killing, right? You invest in profitable industries, because if they increase their profitability, their stock goes up. Okay, and so a lot of their investors, their associates and their friends who they give money under the table, and they give money to their campaigns. They give their children jobs. They give their families and friends jobs, and their wives. They're in the government. They're in the FDA. The FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, is supposed to be regulating these people. Its highest officials, time and time again, retire from the FDA, resign and get a job, a six-figure cushy job, in a pharmaceutical company. And we have many examples of this. But one thing I want to, do with you real fast is I'm going to name one person, one type of job that has vested interest with psychiatrists and big pharma to keep the racket going. And I want you to name one, okay? And for example, I'll say lab technicians, because they take blood levels of patients on psych meds, and that brings them more business and keeps them having a job, right? So we'll start there. Lab technicians. Now you name one.
Psychology.
Yep, you're right, because they have jobs in the psych wards. Okay, I'll name one. I'll name the most obvious: psychiatrists.
I'll give you another one. Any clinicians.
All right, all right. Wait. I want you.
Even psychiatry nurses.
Yes. Okay, one at a time. Let's see how far we can go. Police officer.
This goes on and on and on. Then we go into organisations.
Okay. Let's see how far we can go. Okay, police officers, because they drug people. The people they don't like, they can't take to prison. They can take to the psych ward and say, "Take that. You shouldn't have given me attitude." They can use it to harass people that they can't take to jail, and also to free up prison space. So, police officers, your turn.
Social workers.
All right. Controlled political activists who want to demonize the competition, stigmatize them rather.
Certain members of the public.
Yeah, you could say that. Some people, they think people are annoying. Their neighbors are making noise, and they want them to be drugged up and shut up. Absolutely.
Voluntary organisations.
Yeah, remember, one at a time. It's my turn. Let's see. People.
Well, you can take that one. You can take voluntary organisations.
No. People in secret. I'll name two, and then we'll get back to one. People in secret societies, because they want to control society, and they like.
The reason why I don't want to go down that route is because we should actually just mention the obvious ones.
Yes.
The ones that like the norm in society.
All right. Well,
things like secret societies. People start it's a cause for concern. Oh, that's not really relevant. There's not that much evidence to prove that.
All right.
But if you say things like are socially acceptable,
all right,
that we see on a day-to-day basis, that's going to be more realistic.
All right. Teachers at school. Not only do they refer people, they talk to the principal about students that are, troublemakers. They don't know what's wrong with them, but they want something to be done to, quote unquote, help them. So teachers at school, you see what I mean?
I would say these are organisations that you telephone if you're needing help.
Yeah.
There's been, I don't like this in the States, but basically if you disclose some sensitive information, by the way, they don't tell you what they mean by sensitive information. They're allowed to share that. Now, we don't know what that is. When they say this, you don't know what they're implying it to. So if you say, let's say for example, you're telling them issues about, let's say that you tell them about your issues about gang stalking, they'll probably think, oh well, this person sort of is in need of help and assistance, and sort of take your details down, maybe trace your call, and then sort of link it up with, like, I don't know, your GP, your general practitioner, or that's another one, your general practitioner.
All right.
Your doctor.
All right, so now I would say gays, the gay community, because people who are outspoken against gays or give gays a hard time, they can say this guy is mentally ill, he's bothering us, and police will might feel pressure to take that person to the psych ward. Also, the psych meds themselves, like in this program, right? How I was talking about earlier, can be used to make people more suggestible and thus more open to homosexuality, like people in prison are.
No, but it's like become a taboo subject. I mean, I'm not, um, homophobic, but it's a bit like racism as well. You can't discuss these things. They're supposed to be socially acceptable. However, we do see right-wing parties be, rising, and nobody seems to be retaliating against that. People just have opinions, but you don't see that happening, when it comes to gays or feminists, etc. It seems to be the pro that's something that should, like at the moment. I think transsexuals are being promoted a lot at the moment in society, and there's like on in the media lately they've had like cartoons based, teaching children that you can have an opinion about being, if you're a female you can be a male, and this is like causing a lot of controversy. For parents, they're concerned because children's minds are like really kind of pliable. They're just developing. So to put that kind of information in there, it kind of is. They don't know how they're going to take that. You're kind of giving them mixed messages. So we forgot. The media obviously is the big influence.
The media also has vested interest because they get paid for commercials. You know how it costs a lot of money to do commercials? So whoever they're paying, the broadcasting networks or whatever, they have vested interest too, because there's a ton of commercials about psych meds, right? The billboards, all these advertising companies and resources have vested interest as well. When it comes to the gays, it's very tricky because they play both sides. A lot of people don't see it this way because they either see one side or the other, but they don't see how they play both sides. There's something called gender identity disorder, and it is on the list of mental illnesses still, and gays speak out against it. Gays have to work with psychiatrists in order to make homosexuality more socially normative in the eyes of mental health, especially because they've historically had friction with them. Back in the 70s, which ironically was around the same time MKUltra ended, homosexuality, supposedly ended, homosexuality was removed as a list from the list of mental illnesses. In fact, on record, the CIA director, Richard Helms, ordered all MKUltra files destroyed in 1973. Okay? Now remember, MKUltra was pretty much centered in San Francisco. There was tons of gays involved in it. Okay? And that same year, homosexuality gets removed. At the end of 73, officially in 74, homosexuality gets removed as a mental illness. It's declassified, right? That same year. You think that's a coincidence? No. There was a bunch of gays involved in these secret society, these clandestine activities with the CIA, the MKUltra. They were part of the 80 institutions and 185 private researchers. They used their knowledge of MKUltra to help them kind of coerce psychiatrists into declassifying homosexuality. You see what I'm saying?
I don't think they coerced psychiatrists. I think it was all part of the plan. It just endorses psychiatry. I would say. I wouldn't say that they were.
Yeah, they did. They did that too. It was like this. Either we're going to help you psychiatrists do this, or we're going to expose you for what you did in MKUltra. That was kind of the deal on the table. They might not even have spelled it out like that. The psychiatrists and the pharmaceutical companies could have looked at the situation with the government and said, we're better off, working with gays than trying to work against them.
fundamentally what was happening. I mean, that's what's happening. Integration is supposed to be the way forward, isn't it? It's supposed to be the healthy way forward.
Yep.
But whether it's, you know, a positive integration, that's questionable.
And also, you know, when you look at this thing, right, gays make the argument that people give them a hard time because they're different. So they team up. You know, remember, going back to playing both sides, they're some of the main oppressors in Hollywood and the media and so on. You know, and a lot of the elitists are gays and bisexuals and the dual gender Baphomet and so on. But anyway, their specific argument is that people give them a hard time because they're different and that there's nothing wrong with being gay and that they're not mentally ill. Now, who else do people typically give a hard time because they're different? Women in the workforce, right? Minorities, okay? Hippies and, you know, Satanists. Satanists make that argument. Even though Satanists are scum, they say people like me say that they're scum because they're different and they don't understand what Satanism is really about, and that they're really atheists and they're not that bad, and they stick up for women and gays and Muslims and so on, right? And also, you know, here's the kicker, the punchline. Okay, also, mental patients supposedly are stigmatized, right? There's a whole liberal movement, and there's a tattoo a lot of these feminists get that is supposedly shows that they stand in solidarity with people with mental illness, and they're trying to help remove the stigma. Absolute bullshit. Okay, these are the people that stigmatize sane people, turning around and pretending that they stand in solidarity with those same people that gays and feminists in mental health have helped to stigmatize. Psychiatrists themselves, more often than not, have said that psychiatrists are disproportionately liberals. And when you look at what they're doing, it makes perfect sense, because psychiatry is kind of like an atheistic, agnostic philosophy of science, kind of pseudoscience. Okay, a real Christian wouldn't want to be a psychiatrist, for example. You know, a Muslim fundamentalist, for example, wouldn't want to be a psychiatrist, because it is kind of, you know, it is an assault on religion, a pseudoscientific assault on religion under the pretext of spreading science and reason. And that goes back to the age of enlightenment, the Enlightenment era principles that founded America. This idea that, oh, we're not going to let these fanatics in the church with their superstition, you know, oppress different groups of people who shouldn't be oppressed, and that science is going to liberate us. And it even goes back to Luciferianism, that Lucifer is the liberator of man, and God is kind of oppressive with his natural approach and his supernatural kind of, you know, philosophy that promotes superstition, you know, in the eyes of the Satanists and the Luciferians and the atheists and so on. So when you look at this thing, you know, it is a liberal thing. Now, I don't like conservatives or liberals, but for different reasons. A lot of conservatives tend to be racist. What they're trying to conserve is the white power structure more often than not just conservative Christians, but, you know, most of them are, they want the white people to maintain the edge in society, you know, and for that, I'm put at odds with them. I don't agree with conserving, you know, kind of institutional racism and kind of, you know, playing stupid about it. And so what ends up happening is the liberals and conservatives are both controlled by whites and Jews, and they highlight certain things about each other, but they don't highlight other things. They don't highlight eugenics in the liberal party, because in a way the whites and Jews who run the conservatives and the Republicans, you know, they want eugenics done as well. They just don't want it done the way the liberals are doing it. But if either side highlights what the other side is doing about eugenics, it puts their eugenic agenda at risk. And as things stand now, eugenics are disproportionately done on black people, so the Republicans aren't going to speak against it. You understand? And, you know, the liberals aren't going to highlight the specifics about
But you are missing a point here. A majority of people with mental health issues tend to be of ethnic communities.
Yes, the people who are targeted. Yes, that's part of the eugenic agenda as well, and that goes back to being socially normative. What most people don't grasp is it's not socially normative to be a minority in a majority white, country or any other race, because you're different. You're a minority. There's not too many of you. Like where I live, less than 1% of the people are black. So automatically there's culture clash and culture shock to a certain degree. You follow me?
Yeah.
When these white conservative cowboys see me, dressed in my martial arts uniform, they're not exactly thinking that guy's mentally sound, because they don't understand that martial arts came from Africa in the first place. They don't understand my history of practicing martial arts. They don't truly understand that a lot of black guys are, kind of attracted to the martial arts. So, I've had police officers tell me, "What are you wearing?" I'm wearing a Chinese kung fu gi, right? Before I put the patches on it. And I had a white and Hispanic cop and white cops, who came to
So
take.
do you think if you were Caucasian and you were wearing your karate outfit, they would have asked you?
Yeah, they wouldn't have harassed me as much. I do believe that.
So do you they would have actually said to you, "Oh, what are you wearing?" and questioned it?
Yes, I don't think they would have. I think there's two things going on there. One, you remember I was on my property. I was on my parents' property when that happened. I wasn't at the store or something. But there's two things going on. One is I'm a black guy doing it. And, two is they want white people to do martial arts and not black people. Okay? That is a major part of it. And I'll tell you why. When you look at how society is made, right? Martial arts are expensive to take. The cheapest you can find is maybe $100 a month. Okay? And that's like very cheap, and a lot of poor minority families can't afford that. You might say it's only $100, but a lot of people are scraping by. They're on welfare and they live paycheck to paycheck. They can't afford that $100 a month, and they don't want to take the time to take their children there. But you have these kind of, bourgeoisie, kind of middle class and, privileged class white soccer moms who can afford to put their children into martial arts. So it is more socially normative for white people to take martial arts than black people when you look at it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's also a disgrace. Here's something that my ancestors started, not theirs, but yet it is more socially normative for them to take it than people like me. How backwards is that? And another thing, have you, before I told you, did you ever think that martial arts came from Africa? We're conditioned not to come to that conclusion, right? They want you to believe that Africans were a bunch of people who had spears and cowhide shields or whatever they're made out of, and that they really didn't know how to use them. A bunch of dumb savages that weren't very good with spears and shields, as opposed to...
I must say I didn't know that martial arts came from.
Exactly, because that's part of their propaganda. That's part of the backwardness of their social norms. They wanted you to believe that black people are savages who didn't even take the time to develop combat arts with spears and shields.
Well, we have to associate black people with just slavery, basically, and there doesn't seem to be history going beyond like 1600s.
Yeah.
So when it comes to black culture. So yeah, I agree with that.
And that's part of the oppression. So psychiatry and mental health are basically racist because they help maintain the racist, lie, the propaganda lie that black people are kind of subhuman and they haven't accomplished very much, and that that the reason why they're poor is because of their genetics. Like it or not, they don't say that flat out. They don't go on TV and say, "Oh, the reason why black people live in the ghetto a whole lot, is because of their genetics." They don't say that. But everything that they're doing suggests that is why, when nothing could be further from the truth. You see what I'm saying? So, I've been saying for a long time, psychiatrists and psychiatry upholds white social norms that are racist. and that stigmatize people like me. Even if they hadn't stigmatized me as being mentally ill, what they're doing, they're complicit with this kind of misleading propaganda that stigmatizes me even when they don't label me as mentally ill. You see what I'm saying? So when I see a bunch of fucking white privileged cops, trying to fucking not hear my argument about psychiatry and trying to take me to the psych ward every chance they get, make no mistake, they are racist. Their actions are the actions of racist scum. Now, since when is ignorance an excuse for racism? Don't we commonly associate racism with ignorant, inbred rednecks? So that cop can't say, well, I didn't know. Yeah, neither did the redneck. You're still a racist bastard who should turn in his fucking badge. You see what I'm saying? They are complete cowards, complete pussies. And it's the same thing you see with martial arts. Okay, martial arts are done in a way to deny the black man his rightful place. I am a priceless example. I am the fucking poster boy for white supremacy in martial arts. The white lie, white denial in martial arts. I am the poster boy, the poster man. Why? Because they're denying me my rightful place, because they can't beat me in the most traditional and common and effective form of martial arts competition. Arguably, sparring is the only way to show who's the best without fighting to the death. I can't think of another way. Everything else is speculation. Sparring is the application of martial arts in a way that allows you to kill someone else first on the battlefield before they kill you, which is the whole point of combat.
A lot of people associate martial arts with having a competitor. So this is where the confusion was. I mean, even with me, I was under the assumption you would need a competitor. But when you explain the sparring, that obviously, if you go by that's how it's is that how it's kind of based on in terms of how well you perform in sparring, the speed and...
Oh, absolutely. In fact, when you look at the Bruce Lee movies, right? I believe Enter the Dragon, there was these guys who tried to fight with him, and he kind of, outmaneuvered them and played them out. He didn't beat them up really badly. He just outmaneuvered them and showed them that he was better. And that forced them to the conclusion that, hey, we should train under this guy because we can't lay a hand on him. Okay? And that's what sparring is. It's showing the other opponent where he's weak, and showing him that you're better. It's like, you can't get me before I get you. Your martial arts are inferior, and you need to step your game up. In fact...
But why would you compete with somebody else? Could you explain that?
Why wouldn't I compete? I do compete. That's what my challenge is all about.
Like face-to-face.
You mean like a sports UFC?
Like sports, yeah. Like boxers do.
Because it is dishonorable. Okay? Martial arts, when you look at martial arts, there's two major parts of it. There's really three major parts of it. One is religious and spiritual aspects. Two is combat training and combat applications. And three is honor and morality. Okay? For example, the Buddhists in the Shaolin Temple, right? They don't compete in sports fight. It's against their religion. This one Buddhist monk, he had to retire from the Shaolin monastery. He had to leave. He was outcast. He was basically excommunicated, so to speak, from the Shaolin Temple because he went into sports combat. Because Buddhism is nonviolence. And the way they justified training martial arts is that they are giving the violence back to the person, for self-defense reasons. If someone attacks them, they're giving the violence back to them, thus neutralizing the karma. Because Buddhism is also about karma, and exchanging karma. So if somebody attacks them, they're giving the violence back to them. That's how they justify it. That's exactly what they say on their websites as well. You follow me? So the main thing is, it is dishonorable. Number one, first and foremost, by far. Number two, it is not an effective way to show who is better. For example, is a thumb war, for the same reason a thumb war is not the best way to show who has better martial arts skills, is the same reason that sports fighting is not the best way. Because you're limiting it to this kind of, especially UFC fighting. It gives the grappler the upper hand. On the battlefield, the grappler does not have the upper hand. Grappling is almost obsolete on the combat field. When it comes to self-defense, it's almost obsolete. But in the UFC, it's the other way around. Grapplers tend to be the ones who win. They tap out the other guy with jiu-jitsu and wrestling and stuff. You simply don't see that. Martial arts, it starts with the weapons. You don't go into combat empty-handed. It starts with the weapons. The kind of unarmed combat is secondary. If you lose your weapon and you need to fight somebody for a little while and then take his weapon or pick up a weapon off the ground, okay? Yeah. So when you look at that thing, combat is almost entirely weapons and the skills I talked to you about before: maneuverability, agility, dexterity, precision. Okay?
But you use dummy weapons, don't you? For safety purposes.
Yeah, when I'm training, because I've actually, to show you how deadly, the weapons I use are, the hunting knife, I split my finger open down to the bone doing a knife demonstration, okay? Because, again, nobody's perfect, and I'm drugged. I was drugged, I'm doing a knife demonstration, I'm worked up, and I still have the scar. I split my finger almost down to the bone. You could pretty much see the bone and the two hunks of flesh on each side, and that was just the sharp part just brushing against my finger. Okay? So when you look at this thing, right, people get killed with steak knives. Remember, I was attacked with a long kitchen knife, and you just Google it. There's been countless people murdered with steak knives, not even the longer steak knife or whatever it's called, but the shorter one. Okay? So when it comes to, martial arts, your ability to strike the other person first is key. Because some of these weapons are razor sharp. Okay, that hunting knife damn near cut off my finger, These weapons are really sharp. So when you actually penetrate somebody effectively, it's going to slice open their flesh. It's going to you're going to be bleeding profusely. You want to be able to dodge that. You want to be able to block that. The key part of sparring, more than showing who's better at unarmed combat, is who's better at universal skills. Okay? It also shows, when you get to the black belt level, it also shows who's better at unarmed combat. And I'll tell you why. It shows you who can precisely strike someone. For example, if somebody struck you in the eye really hard with their thumb, you're not going to just have trouble seeing. You're not just going to perhaps go blind. It's going to hurt like hell. Can you imagine somebody jabbing their finger super hard into your eye? Pow! You're going to be like, you're going to want to go on the ground and hold your eye. You see what I'm saying? It's the same thing if they strike your throat. They could crush your trachea, your larynx, and there's another place, the solar plexus, where you're kind of, the indentation on your chest, where your breasts meet, your pecs meet. I'm talking about your solar plexus. A palm strike to that, boom. It sends like a bubble to your stomach. And you want to go on the ground and you want to kind of catch your breath and wait for the heartburn to go away. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, Chuka, I can hear your passion. No, you've explained it really well. So.
Yeah, so these things, these strikes, martial arts it's about those surgical strikes. Think about it. The unarmed combat is modeled after the armed combat. In the armed combat, most of their weapons aren't brute force weapons. In fact, in the Shaolin, weaponry, you might have one or two weapons that are about brute force. And even those weapons are about precision striking. For example, the Morning Star or the ball and chain, right? The ball and chain isn't like a huge ball. It's a small ball.
Yes.
It's small. So you can whip it and you can target maybe the skull or the nose or the jaw and you crash it. Pow, you whip it.
We get that.
So yes,
it's just that you're going into a lot of graphic detail.
Yeah, it's about the precision. That's another thing. It is extreme violence. Martial arts is deadly violence.
That is extreme violence.
And UFC fighting is not. It is sports combat, and the reason why it's legal is because it's not a valid martial arts competition. Other than the sparring. Sparring is legal because it is safe for the most part, but some people still get hurt in sparring. because when people do those faster kicks, when they do the aerial techniques, it's hard to kick lightly when you do it. So they end up kicking each other hard, bow, and some people get brain damage from that. But for the most part, it is a lot safer and it is a lot more honorable. So when the sparring guys came out with the pads, right, which goes back into the BC, they were using pads, like 3000 BC, but the reason why they came up with it is because it was an honorable way to effectively display martial arts excellence. So when you look at this thing, not only is sparring a valid competition, it is the only valid, honorable way to compete. There is nothing else that is a valid, honorable way to compete. Because, for example, I can use martial arts principles when I play basketball. Does that mean that basketball shows who's the greater martial artist? Of course not. Muhammad Ali used martial arts principles to help him become one of the greatest boxers. Does that mean boxing is a valid martial arts competition? No. You see what I'm saying? For the same reason, the UFC fighting is not a valid martial arts competition. It is martial arts applications in ultimate fighting. Okay? All those kind of sport things. And Bruce Lee himself said this. Bruce Lee, and I have a clip of him saying that where he says, actual combat, is not sports fighting. And the guy who was interviewing him said, yeah, he's like, when you're fighting without rules. And the interview guy said, yeah, real fighting. Because real fighting, there's no rules. And when you remove the rules, a precision striker will always have the upper hand on a brute force striker. Somebody who's big and strong. Because I can outmaneuver him. I can jab his eye. I can smash his groin. I can, I won't go into detail, but I can really cause him pain in a small amount of time. And then I can pick up an object and finish him off. So these guys might look intimidating. They might be big and strong. But if it ever came down to it, they would basically be my pin cushion. And I would insert a bunch of sharp objects in a small period of time to finish them off. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, quite specifically, actually.
And have you ever seen the kung fu movies, right? They'll start fighting with each other and they'll start pulling out weapons. They'll throw chairs at each other. They might pick up a wooden plank and start, fighting with somebody with a sword, blocking it. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, I understand.
They do a good job displaying the principles of martial arts. Sometimes they get carried away and they fly and they do unrealistic things, but they do a very good job showing you in the kung fu movies what martial arts are really about. That's what they're about, those transferable skills. And, the opposition doesn't even want to bring up the phrase transferable skills. They don't want to bring that up because they know if they do, it's over. They'll have conceded my point. They want me to switch the challenge in a way that gives other people the upper hand. Now, typically, black people, a lot of them, they're kind of tall and athletic, right? When you look at tall white people, have you ever seen, who Ichabod Crane is?
Yeah.
He's kind of like from, the cartoon. What's that cartoon called? Where the headless horseman, you know what I'm talking about?
Kind of.
With white people, it is extremely rare to find somebody who's tall and athletic. But in general, it's kind of rare. But the majority of people like that are black people for whatever reason. White people are kind of like tall and thin, right? They're kind of like goofy Ichabod Crane types. Kind of Adam's apple, kind of, scarecrow kind of build, right? Or they're kind of big, guys, big white guys, huge bodybuilder guys who are tall. But they're not too, they don't have a lot of dexterity. They're not very athletic when they get that tall. But when you look at black people, right, look at the NBA, right? There's a bunch of tall, athletic black guys. You follow me?
Yeah.
So when you do martial arts competition in its traditional form, one could argue that if any race has the upper hand, which I'm not sure anyone does, but if anyone did, a strong argument can be made that it's black people. And you can imagine that gives every other race vested interest in changing the nature of the competition. You follow me?
The Headless Horseman is a movie.
Yeah, and Ichabod.
I think it's Sleepy Hollow.
Yes, that's what it is. Okay, that's how a lot of these white guys are. There's this kind of school teacher from Sleepy Hollow, Ichabod Crane, kind of tall, skinny, because there's a lot of tall white guys. It's like 1 in 5 white people in America are over 6 feet. Okay, there's a lot of those tall guys, but they're not very athletic. They're not great. They're not too often great warriors. Some of them are big and strong, and for that reason, they can beat a lot of people up. And I'm not saying that big and strong people can't beat someone up. I'm saying that when you take someone who's big and strong against a trained precision striker who is, who's...
You tend to find basketball players, the black players tend to be really good.
Yep.
In box, well.
Yep. So
there seems to be a pattern.
Yeah, and another argument, one thing they might say is that black people dominate all these sports, so they want to change martial arts in a way that favors Asians and whites and so on, right? They make that argument behind the scenes in the secret societies, and the problem with that is martial arts is more than just a sports activity. It is a sacred and extremely important activity, art, okay? So you look at Freemasonry, for example. They call it the craft. Remember before I told you how arts and crafts are related. Many crafts are arts, and many arts are also crafts. You follow me?
Yeah.
So these secret societies are very concerned with martial arts and who is recognized as being a great martial artist. For example, name one famous black martial artist movie star. Can you?
Oh.
They exist. They're just not recognized as such. For example, one is Wesley Snipes. Do you know that he does martial arts?
No.
Yeah, most people don't know that. Another one is a guy named Michael J. White. You ever heard of him?
No, I don't think I have. No.
Exactly my point. Now name famous movie star white martial artists.
Chuck Norris.
Exactly. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
That's it. Yeah.
Steven Seagal. Dolph Lundgren. And on and on and on. Now some of them are mixed with Jewish. Like Van Damme is part Jewish. You follow me? So there's famous white and Jewish martial artists. And there's famous Asian martial artists. Jet Li. Jackie Chan. Back in the day, Bruce Lee. And Donnie Yen, the guy who plays Ip Man. You see what I'm saying? Now, don't you see how there is a media bias against black people when it comes to martial arts?
No, I agree. No, I understand. I understand.
And these are the people, they want to tell me that my challenge isn't fair. What they really don't like is the fact that a black person will establish himself as the greatest martial artist in American history. That makes their blood boil. They will never admit it's true. They will never, ever admit that's true. No matter how much they see in my way, they will never admit it's true, especially when I am talking about the white power structure and the institutions.
Well, one could argue, if that was the case, then why did they have a black president?
Well, for the same reason they had blacks working in the house. You know what a house nigga is? Is the black guy working in the house kissing ass to the white master. The president is a puppet. Okay, and he was half white. Okay, Obama is a mulatto president. So you could argue that it is a way to appease the minorities, especially the black people, and to still be able to say, hey, the reason why he's smart and qualified is because he's half white. You follow me? You follow me? What they are doing is extremely racist. Scientific racism, eugenics. Media racism, institutional racism, social norms being upheld that favor whites, Jews, and Asians. Racism. But when I lash out at this extreme racism and start calling them names, they're going to turn around and say, he was a racist. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because when you're a great warrior and you know that there's people you could kill in a matter of moments, and they want to change the form of the competition to favor the people you would kill in like 2 seconds or less, Imagine, put yourself in my shoes. Some guy that I would slice up in 2 seconds or less. I'd have them twitching on the ground, begging for their lives. And they want to do a competition that is not traditional. It is not effective. It doesn't reflect true martial arts skills. And it gives the prey, it gives the victim, it gives the inferior martial artist the upper hand. How sick is that? I don't care if they can break 1,000 bricks with their ball sack. I don't care if they can put their legs behind their heads. I don't care if they can do 500 flips. If they cannot beat me at martial arts combat, then they aren't as good as I am. And these people want to distract you with all their little gimmicks, all their little tricks, all their parlor tricks. You know, the tricks of the trade. I am the truth of the art, while they practice the tricks of the trade. I have mastered the truth of the art, while they dabble in the tricks of the trade. And they want everyone to believe that they are better than I am. You see how that works?
Yeah. I just thought I'm just picking up intimidation.
Yeah, they want to intimidate me. It's not that they are intimidating me. That's one thing you did wrong with the last interview. You made it seem like that it's working, that they're intimidating me.
No, I'm not saying that they made you intimidated, but that's what their plan is almost.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and they use gang members. That's part of why they have the gang members, and you know, and kind of bodybuilders from the gyms helping them out. You know, and the military. Some of these military guys are bigger guys. They're trying to use them to intimidate me.
I think the fact that you're quite kind of a determined person and focused, people don't seem to respect that.
You're saying they don't respect that I'm determined and focused?
Yeah, they don't respect the fact that you have the utmost respect for martial arts, and it means a lot to you.
Yeah.
And you're focused, so I guess it's almost a joke for them. Therefore, they'd use any tactic to sort of demoralise it in some way or form, I guess. That's why they're kind of using the tactics they use.
You also got to realize that they psychologically, mentally, physically, and spiritually have raped black people for a long time. They raped their resources. They raped their women in slavery. Okay.
But with the experience you have, don't you find that you're dealing with the same set of people saying the same comments, repeating, almost like going back to what we said initially, that just brainwashing, you know, repetitiveness.
Yeah.
Constant, you know, it's like they don't have anything else, but it's like it's a bit like your martial arts, you know, you practice, because you're focused, it's almost like using the same language over and over again, so it sort of sticks with you.
Yeah.
And
you know,
sort of, you know, to cause a reaction.
Yeah. And that too, you know. And also it serves the purpose of trying to get me to talk about martial arts more and talk about psychiatry and other things less. You know, they wish that I only talked about martial arts, but they also wish that I pretended that I wasn't the best. They don't want me to talk about all the things that I talk about. And they don't want me to talk about martial arts in the way that I talk about it. If I didn't say that I was the top martial artist, they probably wouldn't care what I said. You know, except for the UFC guys. You know, if I didn't highlight that UFC isn't a valid martial arts competition, and I didn't say that I'm the top martial artist, they probably wouldn't care. In fact, that's what they've been telling me all this time. They've told me, change my stance about women. Stop describing myself as the top martial artist. Change my stance on gays. Don't talk about psychiatry. Don't talk about white people. Don't talk about Freemasonry. These are the things that they harass me with. If I did all those things, what would I be talking about? Fucking baseball or something? You know, those are like the main things that I talk about because they need to be said. These are, you know, they want to control human behavior. And when people see it the way that I do, they don't want to behave the way these people want them to. You see? And that's why, you know, the Supreme Court described it not as mind control, but as controlling human behavior. There's a difference. Mind control implies that you're controlling just the mind and therefore controlling behavior through the mind. But there's also a body connection, right? There's the brain, there's the reflexes. So when you look at it, them trying to control human behavior is a better and more accurate description than simply mind control. But mind control is the major factor of it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also, you know, if they control the leader's mind, right, then they control the minds of the people to a lesser degree. Okay? So when you look at controlling human behavior, it is of the utmost importance to control famous people and leaders. You follow me?
Yes.
So, you know, the fact that I'm trying to take my rightful position, as much as you know, you don't like that phrase, even though you used it yourself, you know, as much, you know, the fact that I'm trying to take my rightful position and I'm exposing everything else that they're doing, well, you know, the most important oppressive activities that they're doing, you know, the ones that need to be addressed the most, that makes their blood boil. And I get all kinds of sickos with complexes. I get the white racist rednecks who don't want quote unquote uppity black people to rise above them and tell them what to do. I get the fucking control freak pigs. I get the sickos in mental health with huge complexes. I get the controlled opposition, you know, political group bitches. I get the race-based groups and, you know, and clubs who want to maintain their position in society because
they get all the extremists attacking you.
That and everyone who's concerned with how things are. There's a lot more people than you think that are okay with how things are because they like their position. It's kind of like a gangster, right? A gangster doesn't like the fact that, you know, we live in a racist society. But as long as they have a position that allows them to drive a nice car, to get bad bitches, to have a pocket full of hundreds, okay? They don't want it to change. You follow me?
Yeah.
They don't want to see change because why would they want to change when they're living a life that makes them happy? They're giddy. They're all drugged up. They're drinking, you know what lean is? Sipping on some scissor. Okay, they're drinking their lean. They're drinking their Cristal or whatever they drink these days. They're smoking their weed. They're doing cocaine. They're driving a Benz with rims, you know, with Vogues or whatever they drive these days. You know, they have a bunch of attractive women with big booties. They don't want it to change. You know, they want the environment to remain the same so they can stay keeping it gangsta, so to speak, and live that lifestyle that they are. So, you know, they don't like oppression and racism and corrupt cops, don't get me wrong, but they like their position in the New World Order. So therefore they have vested interest with all the people they should not only hate, with the people that they shouldn't just hate, but they should be doing drive-bys on every day. They're actually helping them so they can maintain their position and their way of life. You understand?
Yeah.
It is utterly disgraceful. That's why I'm so hard on them. I'm like, man, fuck those motherfuckers. That's always been my argument with gang members. So why are we fighting each other? And you'll see other activists say the same thing, you know, but they're controlled just like the gang members, right? They'll say, point your guns in the right direction. After years of people saying that, why are they still not pointing their guns in the right direction? Because they like how things are. They don't love the oppressor, but they like how things are. Ain't that about a bitch? So it's like I'm fighting an uphill battle here. You know?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the how the blacks demographic is structured, right? You have controlled black political activists. You know, Al Sharptons and black communists and former Panthers who are CIA assets, FBI assets, right? You have gang members and rappers like Snoop Dogg who are also pushing the New World Order, Young Jeezy, you know, Lil Wayne, Baby. All these guys are New World Order assets. You follow me? And, you know, they don't want me to shine either. They don't want the women to say, you know what, I'd rather be with Chuku than Snoop Dogg. You see what I'm saying? They don't want that. They like how things are because they're the most popular guy. A guy who can just rap and talk in a cool way, you know, is one of the most popular people in the black community in America. You see what I'm saying? If things were different, he would not be the most popular person. You follow me? So he actually teams up with the people who are oppressing him, the people who enslaved his ancestors, so he can maintain his position. And he has to express how he resents them. He resents them, but he's not going to go against them because he likes how it is. So he's going to be on TV like, oh, fuck those motherfuckers, acting all cool. But really, in his heart, he's not as against them as someone like me, you know? He just resents them because he knows they're racist. He knows they're richer than he is. He knows they're oppressors. But again, I can't say it enough. You know, he's cool with it to a certain degree, to a large degree. You know, as long as he's in the spotlight. And that's the problem with all the black leaders. They're all selfish, spotlight-loving scum. And they have worked with the white man to deny me my rightful place. Can you see that?
Yeah.
A lot of them are very aware of who I am. Believe it or not, a lot of those black famous people are aware of who I am and what I'm trying to do. You know? But they don't want me to do it. They don't want things to change. They don't want me to overthrow the oppressor and change the dynamic of social life in America. Because if people take on my philosophy, people who are greedy become scum. All the rich black celebrities overnight become scum if people overnight take on my philosophy. You see what I'm saying? Now, instead of women throwing themselves at them and looking at them with lust, they're looking at them with disgust. Oh, you're one of those bootlicking cowards that Chuku talks about. You see what I'm saying? You think they want that to happen? Some of these people would kill me gladly to keep that from happening. You believe me?
Of course, yeah.
So you can imagine how I resent them along with I group them in with the oppressors because they're helping the oppressors. Everyone with vested interest to suppress me and my talent and my view and to keep me from my rightful place must be an oppressor. Do you agree? This is that those people will come to me. They have come to me and they'll say, we'll help you if, you know, some of them have said, take your videos down and we'll help you. You follow me?
Yeah, I understand.
And what they're really saying is, take your videos down and we'll help you fall in line and we'll throw you a bone once in a while to make you feel like you made the right decision and to keep you from trying to go back to what you were doing. You know, it's all about that, you know, and what could they possibly say? They think because they're a rapper or a gangster that they're more deserving of leadership than someone like me? That is utter nonsense. They think because they bootlicked for 30 years to become a famous black activist that they're more deserving of leadership than I am. Isn't that ridiculous? They want to live in a world where how much you've bootlicked to the New World Order determines how worthy of a leader you are. That is the kind of world that they have made. Utter nonsense. And they have the nerve to say things, well, that's not how it works. That's what they say. That's not how it works. And I say to them all, fuck how it works. I don't give a shit how it works. I only care about what is right, what is natural, what is rightful, what is consistent with God's wisdom. Not how Babylon's system works. I intend to destroy Babylon's system. And anyone who is holding on to Babylon's system with a death grip will die along with Babylon's system. Babylon's system is like a drug, and all these cowards are dependent. and they will act a fool to get their drug. Their drug is their position in Babylon's system. And the system is the drug dealers. The social designers, the social engineers are the drug dealers. And their drug of choice is their position in Babylon's system. That's how it goes. Oh boy, you know, whenever I break it down like this, man, you know, I feel weird about it. I almost feel bad because I know I'm dealing with drug addicted prostitutes. That's what they are. They are drug addicted prostitutes. They are addicted to their position in Babylon's system, and they have whored themselves. They have whored their souls like the fucking whore that rode the beast in Revelation. They have whored themselves to maintain their position and their addiction, to feed their addiction, to get their fix. The system is fixed, and they have a fixed position within a fixed system, and that fixed position is their fix, and they have whored their mind, bodies, and souls to get that position. And so, on the one hand, it is despicable, it is detestable, it is deplorable. On the other hand, they're like any other prostitute. You know, you got to feel sorry for them to a certain degree, even though they're doing it to themselves. You follow me?
Yeah.
It's like a $2 crack whore, right? You can call her names and shit, but, you know, when you truly examine it, the situation, you're going to feel sorry for them too. You know? It's like that's one hell of a way to live your life. And at the end, there is no, you know, pot of gold at the end of Lucifer's rainbow. There is a pot of boiling water, lava, and excrement. It is absolutely shameful. You know, and I know it's interesting how no one ever thinks about it this way, right? The bottom line, okay? Whenever there are people who don't deserve to be in positions of power, people who do deserve to be in positions of power are denied their rightful place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
By default, those who are natural leaders, who are rightful leaders, are denied their rightful places. Some of them are so brainwashed they don't even know. They don't know who they are. They don't know that they're being fucked, you know, that they're being robbed and denied. They're just so conditioned. They're sitting there like, oh, you know, they're worshiping the people who have denied them their rightful place. Isn't that sick? They have posters of people who have denied them their rightful place in their rooms. One hell of an irony, right?